Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Lisa Grace, and today I have for you part 2 of my art class sketchbook flip through. So if you haven't seen part 1, go watch that now. Okay, so to start off this sketchbook, I want to show you guys a piece that I started in the last video, but hadn't finished. And so I would like to present to you my St. Jerome, not in his study. In the previous video, this piece wasn't quite finished. I mean, I can't say it wasn't quite finished. It really hadn't really been started. I had a little bit of pencil on there laying out some of my plan, but now I would like to present to you my finished piece of St. Jerome in his study. But in my class, we did St. Jerome not in his study. This piece took me around, I think around 80 hours to complete, but I am just so proud of it. This was a work of blood, sweat, and tears, honestly, to get all of this perspective down with the pen, because pen is kind of like you've got one shot to do it. But this piece grew me so much as an artist, and whenever I look at it, I feel like it represents such a growth period in my artistic journey, where I took something that was super overwhelming. I procrastinated this piece so much and pushed through and completed it. And I had this piece at my graduation table, and it was just such a fun, cool moment to see where I started and where I ended. But we couldn't have the sketchbook tour without showing you guys this piece. So now on to the second half of the sketchbook flip through. I'm so excited to show you all of these pages. So first off, on this side, I did a pattern with strawberries and sparkles and leaves, and for this assignment, we were learning about William Morris, who was a really amazing pattern designer and wallpaper designer during the Industrial Revolution, and it was like everyone was mass producing things, and he was opening up a high quality shop. So I was really inspired by his designs and how ornate they were, and how much repetition there was in his patterns. So I decided to do some strawberries and sparkles, and I really enjoyed this one. Next, we have the Banjo Lesson Master Study, and this was by Henry Osawa Tanner. And so our assignment for this one was to really focus on catching the faces of these two people. This is supposed to be like a grandpa and a grandson, which I think is so cute. And we were also supposed to capture the lighting in this, supposed to be like this little home, so a little kitchen, and I think this is supposed to be a skillet, I'm not sure, but this was such a fun piece. The artist was the first internationally renowned African American, so it was a big moment in art history for African Americans and how they were respected and treated as artists. So this one was really fun to do. Next, we have a guy on a boat surrounded by sharks, which this is actually kind of a master study of Winslow Homer's The Gulf Stream. His was painted, so we studied the way he painted the waves with all the marks and movements and dramatic colors. That looks like a raging sea, or at least it does to me. And on this side, we just sketched out what was happening in the scene. So this whole tornado in the background and the little figure study. So this one was really fun. I really love how these waves turned out and how dramatic they feel. I don't know. If I were on a boat and saw that, I would be very scared. Next, we have a fun one, which is Monet's Water Lilies. And I don't know about you guys, but I really am inspired by Monet so much. And so it's always kind of been a dream to be able to paint one of his pieces, and something I never have done before. So painting this one was so fun. It was so fun to try and to make all the texture movement and colors that he used. So I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Speaking of artists that I'm so inspired by and have always dreamed of recreating some of their pieces, Van Gogh is up next. So this one is Sunflowers 14, that's the painting, the master study we recreated. And this one was so interesting to me because there was so many different flower angles, this one's facing down and that one's facing that way and this one's facing straight forward. Some of them are more just the center of a sunflower without the petals anymore. But this was just such a dynamic piece and so fun to make different colors and this background and everything. So we sketched out the sunflowers here, then painted it here, and maybe you've noticed by now, but this doesn't say Vincent here. This says my name, Alyssa. I just really wanted to put my name on the pot since I painted it, but it's still his master study and my name, so that's fun. Next, another Van Gogh piece, which is Starry Night. And Starry Night is definitely one of those pieces that I'm like, oh, that would be so fun to paint and recreate. And so I'm so glad that I actually got to do that and like have it right next to my Monet one that I did. So this one was this was actually more challenging than I thought with all of the different colors that were in all of these spirals, but I really think it turned out pretty well. And as for learning about different colors in this piece and like movement, I think I was just so surprised to see green in the sky. Like there's blue, there's yellow, but he actually used green in the sky. That was a little interesting thing that I noticed whenever I was painting it that I learned from. You can use whatever colors you want to make an effect. Next we have Jerome, and Jerome was a master of pointillism, so our assignment was to make a piece just using dots. And so this is a little example of how these dots kind of like bend your mind by making this look orange and that look purple, and you didn't mix anything. It's just dots next to each other. So I chose to do grapefruit. I thought, I don't know, grapefruit just felt fun. I saw this picture of these grapefruits stacked like this on Pinterest, and I was like, that looks very fun. So I just decided to pointillism, draw these little grapefruit, and I think it turned out really fun. I think my favorite part is the shadow. It's like, it looks, I don't know, very grayish, but it's just red and teal dots, so very fun. So next up we have Georgia O'Keeffe, was the artist we learned about, and we did her poppies piece. So this one was so crazy because normally you would think, you know, you paint your piece, your flower in the middle without it being cut off, but that was a big thing that she learned, and not learned, but I learned from her, was she wasn't afraid to crop her paintings and like paint out into the edges, and it makes it feel so much more dramatic and like, wow, that's a huge flower. So this one was really fun, especially with mixing color and textures and everything. Next up we have a heavier piece, and this one our artist we were learning about was Pablo Picasso, and he created an anti-war painting called Guernica against the Spanish Civil War. The week we had the assignment to create this painting, the Russian-Ukrainian war broke out, and so our art teacher was like, you can either paint Guernica, recreate that as a master study, or make your own. So I decided to make my own for the Russian-Ukrainian war, and it's definitely like a hard piece to look at, I think, but I added all these different imageries in here, like this woman who has the Ukrainian flag colors on her, and the Ukrainian flag here. This is anti-war signs from the Russian side, like I'm Russian, I'm ashamed, stop war, stand with Ukraine, things like that I saw on a news article from Russian protests. And then over here we have lots of sad imagery, newspapers that are ripped up. This right here is the first explosion shape of the bomb that went off in Ukraine. That kind of marked a big thing that was in the beginning of the war. But yeah, this piece was really helpful for me because I was able to like process a lot of what was going on and what I thought about it. But yeah, this one was a really good learning experience for me of creating something that expresses an emotion. So next up, on a happier note, was Andy Warhol and pop art. So my art teacher was like, take something you love and make it pop art, or take something ordinary, make it pop art, or you could take something from your childhood. So I was like, let me do childhood. And so I took this logo of a game I used to play in my childhood. It was this computer game by Disney, and it's called Toontown. And so these eyeballs represent the little characters you could be. It was kind of like Disney characters, but that weren't from any specific movie, just kind of like an animal you could be and name yourself. Anyways, so in the game, you were Toons, and you were saving Toontown from the robots. And so this gear represent the little cogs, the little robot bad guys. So, Toontown, and then I made it pop art. Anyways, I love this one. It reminds me, so it just makes me happy looking at it, and just a fun reminder of my childhood. Then on this side, we have Henri Matisse. And Matisse was a guy who did lots of like designs, and he used lots of cut paper to make different things. So our assignment was to use cut paper, like cut up pieces of paper to make a design. And so I was like, oh, I want to do something that has flowers. So I painted these pieces of paper with like streaks of paint. So whenever I cut them out, it almost looks like veins or texture on the flower. And I did the same with the leaves. When I showed my art teacher this, she was like, it almost looks like you're looking at a bouquet from the top perspective, like looking down at a bouquet of flowers. And I was like, that is a great perspective. I love that. Anyways, this is kind of one of my favorite pieces of this book. I don't know. I keep saying that some are my favorite pieces. I don't know which ones are my favorite, but all of them are my favorite. Next, we have my surrealism lesson. So we were learning about Salvador Dali, and he was a surrealist artist who kind of took ordinary things and kind of blended them together in a way that is unnatural or surreal. So our assignment was to take two things we loved and put them together. So I was like, espresso, coffee, and flowers. I actually did a video of the whole process of this painting, so you guys can go watch that video. That was such a fun process. It was definitely a challenging process. I needed to work through a lot of things, but I feel like I grew so much from it. I'm so happy with how this one turned out. It's like so bright and happy, and when I look at this, it's just like, oh, I wish this was a real thing. And you know, that's a fun way to do surrealism, making something that feels lovely and like you wish it was real. So next we have Pollock, and Pollock was a splatter paint artist. So I got to get this all out, you know, lay down paper everywhere and then get my splatter paint ready. It was definitely a messy process, but sometimes messy processes are very fun processes. So I got this and successfully avoided getting splatter paint on anything that didn't want splatter paint, and created this really fun, bright pink and purple and green splatter paint piece. So next up we have our lesson on Edward Hopper, and Edward Hopper was largely known for his paintings he did in World War II, which depicted women that were like alone, or places that should be bustling with activity and people that were empty. So lots of loneliness and abandoned vibes. So our assignment was to paint something that felt lonely or abandoned. So I painted this abandoned gas station for this piece, and it was so interesting that like when I was painting it, it felt lonely to paint, if that makes any sense. So I added this quote over here, "You are not alone," to just have that balancing, contrasting feelings, like you are not alone, even though you might feel lonely. Like, what is the truth? Anyways, this was a really helpful quote for me whenever I was painting this, and I really love this spread now. So next up is Escher. And this one was really fun to do. We had a square of paper and we're assigned to cut something out and then paste it over here. So I cut the shape out over here, and I started to think, this looks like a snail. So I was like, oh, let's do a garden. So I made a whole like little garden thing, cut out this garden words. I like love how this one turned out. And over here we did an optical illusion, so kind of made an interlocking design. So I found this cat idea that an artist did to learn about Escher, and I was really inspired by it, so I chose to do something similar and create this cat design to learn about Escher and his optical illusion patterns. Last but definitely not least, we have my abstract expression piece. And so for this one, we were learning about an artist named Makoto Fujimura. And Makoto Fujimura has a lot of theories about art. And one of them is that whatever you're thinking and whatever you're feeling gets imprinted into your art like a photograph. And so he says, be very intentional about what you're thinking, and it will become part of the piece. So for this assignment, we were supposed to pick a topic and kind of let us guide us into what to create. So I was kind of just thinking about wonder and the wonder and joy and beauty of life. So that was my topic. Like, wow, what is life? It's so beautiful. And so I created this piece, and it's got like this spiral thing in it, and Makoto Fujimura has lots of gold leaf he incorporates into his paintings, so we did that too. I love this piece. I think it was such a cool thing to try. Like, I had never done anything like this, never done something so abstract, and I just love how it turns out. And whenever I look at this, it really does kind of translate the idea of wonder to me. So I'm really happy that his idea worked, and that what I created was carried out by what I was thinking about. So that is the end of the sketchbook tour for my art class. I really hope you guys enjoyed looking through this with me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!